afternoon to you, our dear esteemed viewers. Welcome back to this episode of the Youth Roundtable. My name is Douglas Onen, and this week I am joined by aspirants of the Eastern Youth Member of Parliament. And today's discussion, we are going to pin it on the youth question. The youth question in regards to what is arising out of the Eastern region, but we also get to understand what the aspirants that are joining us in this conversation have for the people of the Eastern region. So in no particular order, allow me to introduce my guests, but also give them the chance to say hello, and then we get straight into the conversation, because we're having a conversation around the youth question that arises from the East. From my immediate left, I am joined by a gentleman by the names of John Baptist Ouma. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be at Civic Space again. Ouma John Baptist is my name, a young man from Sigulu Island in Namugga district, that is East Busoga Diocese, that's Busoga sub-region. A friend to many young people in Eastern Uganda. I'm honestly happy to be at Civic Space again.
Thank you. Very happy to have you here. When someone hears the name Ouma, they'll say, is that from the north? But surprisingly, it's from Busoga. Right next to you, we have the lady in the veil, Hajat. Most welcome, Miss Aisha Namugga. Very happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here as well. My name is Namugga Aisha. I come from Jinja City, from a small street called Radio Road in Namugga Parish. I am happy to be here and mostly happy to be in the race with these amazing people. So I'm also happy to be here for the first time. Hope I'll be here again.
Definitely, we'll have you again. A very familiar face on the show, Masawi Ivan. You're most welcome once again.
Yes, Drake and our viewers, I need to appreciate you. I'm glad to be back here. My name still remains Masawi Ivan, a member of the FDC. The last time I left here, I never had a presidential candidate. I've returned with one. I see colleagues have introduced by region. I come from Bugisu. I always feel disadvantaged. I can't say I'm born in Bududa. I come from the entire Bugisu. The FDC flag bearer for the Eastern UFMP, and I beseech our viewers and followers in that context to give us audience as a panel as we engage on issues that partake the region.
All right, let's start the conversation. I prefer to have this conversation and first of all understanding the challenges, the overriding challenges that in the region. And of course, I'll give you 2 minutes or so to highlight for me the issues and the viewers, the issues that you think the young people in the Eastern region are facing. I'll begin with you, Masawi. You've been on the panel and you're our permanent panelist on the Youth Roundtable. From your view and from what you gather, what are the overriding challenges that the people in the Eastern region are facing, and what do you intend to do to address those challenges?
When you ask what the challenges are and what I intend to do, the question and the answer become bigger. But since most of our viewers are literate, the Equal Opportunities Report 2024 highlighted regions that don't equally touch on the national cake. And part of the regions that were disadvantaged, apart from in Eastern, apart from Tesa and Usoga, the rest of Bukedi, Bugisu fail. In that context, near Karamoja and the rest. UBO's report of the 2024 National Housing Census indicated apart from Karamoja, the second poorest regions were Zachori, then you come to Teso, come to Usoga. These are places where people have only 2 pairs of clothes. Walking on barefoot is part of uniform. These are places where people live less than $2 a day. So the issues, if you asked me in context, the general issues facing Uganda as a country are issues facing Eastern region. But where our issues as Eastern Uganda become different is that there is an issue of equal opportunity for all. that when we come to an issue of where does Eastern Uganda stand when it comes to opportunity sharing, with few colleagues, 2 years ago, we started what was called the Eastern Revolutionary Platform. That was with my brothers, with Giro and the group, so I was the vice president. Our key agenda then was how do we negotiate the politics of Eastern Uganda to be productive? Because my colleagues say they are from Busoga. The Basoga's issue has not only been sugarcane, but when they go into sugarcane, it causes scarcity of food. So there is famine, there is still poverty. There was a time when Busoga's biggest challenge was jiggers. Not even more than 15 years ago. So the issues affecting Eastern region have been because of being an isolated region. There is a fallacy that President Museveni has sold to the country that we always appoint vice presidents and we have people in his cabinet who represent regions on top, but when the key issues affecting those regions are never addressed. I think it is only in Northern Uganda ever since 86 who has not had a vice president in the NRM. But when you look at Kazibwe Wandera, you look at Yarupo, he will always have those people who just all over the place, but their effectiveness towards addressing the regional disparities don't add up. So, by region, the IBOS report highlighted the challenges. If you go by literacy levels, you combine the entire region, Bugisu, Bukedi, Teso, Busoga, and get an average. They will be second to Northern because North is affected by Karamoja statistics. If you come to poverty, and the biggest disadvantage why we always on all this, it is one of the most fertile areas. It opens the border with Kenya. Our roads are poor, but it is the very road that brings cargo into this country. When you reach Mabira going to Eastern Uganda, we have one of the worst roads, and we have 2 pairs of roads, and one ends at Ginger Bridge. Past Ginger, we have 1 pair of road that takes you maybe until Uganda, where you branch off to Mbayo to road. So, in terms of service delivery, if I told you that, or if I was to address, is that they need to be an equal opportunity sharing in this country. It is where I'm disgruntled as a person that Eastern Uganda has been isolated. In Uganda's dress code, we are used for fashion. We have been taken not to be very essential. I've told you if you go to Equal Opportunities Report and check the number of permanent secretaries, or even in Bugis, we now only have 1 state minister. We no longer have cabinet, right? But even when you go where Iteso, who has majority, and Busoga, and then you go and find out the dropout levels in Kamuri, where they had the SEC member of the NRM, you check the teenage pregnancy levels, literacy levels. So, the Honorable Chagulanyi scoring high in Busoga, that never meant Kadaga wasn't there. Oh, there were no NRM people. Why NRM MPs won, but the population voted who? Because the other ones are their children, irrespective of the party they will be voted. But I can tell you, for example, for Busoga as a region where my colleagues come from, it would be so central that it is a neighbor of central Uganda, but once you cross the bridge, you may think you've gone again another country very far because of the disparities in incomes and sustainability.
Thank you very much, Ivan. You highlight very key issues. One, that there is need for equal opportunity sharing, and in that you note issues to do with poverty, and then later on underpin it in other overriding consequences like famine, among others. But that is what you identify as the challenges that the Eastern region is facing, and what you're calling for is equal opportunity sharing. But also, we shall get into what you intend to do to see that there is that equal share of the national cake. But let me come to you, Aisha. The same question still runs to you. You are an aspirant for the Eastern Youth Member of Parliament, and of course, there are challenges that I believe, and the viewers out there know that you have identified as overriding challenges that you intend to tackle. But before we go into how you intend to tackle those challenges, what are they? What are those challenges or issues that that the young people of the East of Eastern Uganda are facing?
Okay, thank you, Douglas. To remind, we are coming for youth MP. So the first problem is, as representatives of the youth, is that despite the fact that we come from a region, we have to represent the interests and the disparities the age group we are representing are facing. If we focus on general problems of our region, we are going to get lost in what we want. So my biggest two problems, the first is when we look at the age group we're representing, is a mismatch between what our education system equips us with and what is on the job market. You study, being told education is the key to success, and then you reach and you're shocked. That's the first. I want to keep this brief because of the time constraint. And the second is my agenda, no youth left behind. We have initiatives. We should not only focus on the problems that we have in our region. We have initiatives that are present. The government has brought initiatives. Let us embrace. But the youth in our region have been blinded to embrace them. They have not been exposed to these initiatives. By the current leaderships that are in place, they have kept to themselves or only provided with their people. Like, for example, we were talking with you before the show began. You went, you had a project, you took it to different districts, you talked to different leaders, and you do not know the percentage these people brought to you, that they represented a fair percentage of the people in that region. So the percentage that is exposed to the initiatives is not fair to the percentage that should be exposed to the initiatives. We have seen this during the president's PDM drive. And they're asking actually youth leaderships, why aren't youth being involved in the initiatives that are present? But it is lack of exposure to these initiatives, and it is lack of engagement in these initiatives that are present.
Is it really lack of exposure that has led to many young people not being part of the process, or is it rather the bureaucratic processes that are embedded in these processes, or even others would say the corruption that is entailed in the processes to help the young people access this opportunity?
So you see, that takes me back to the key point. We are focusing on the problem.
Yeah.
Let's look at how best I can navigate. How best can I access a certain initiative? Actually, initiatives are very easy to access. You go to the CDO and he guides you on how to access. You talk to your councillor, who we all vote, and they guide you on how to access. There is no bureaucracy in accessing. You just need to go put yourself out there. But we're not putting ourselves out there enough to be able to, gain from the initiatives. So it's true. We are not utilizing the initiatives that are current and that are aimed at helping us. And there is disparities and a mismatch between what our education system is equipping us with and what is on the job market.
Interesting. All right, we shall further interrogate that into detail. But allow me to come to you, John Baptist. We have listened in to the challenges that my brother Ivan and my sister Aisha identify. Ivan articulates that, of course, equal sharing of opportunities is paramount. But of course, he highlights other key challenges in terms of poverty, among other challenges. Then we have Aisha, who identifies two things. One, there is an education that is in place that is not equipping people with the right mindset and opportunity to allow them to tap into the opportunities that are present. But of course, she embeds it with one, lack of exposure, which we shall further interrogate. But let's also get to you. As an aspirant to the race, both of you come from the national resistance movement, and I believe you will also be running for the primaries. And I would love to believe that the challenges that you have noticed and identified as the son of the soil from the eastern region have your own opinions and the challenges that you think are quite paramount and challenges that you think need to be addressed. So let's get into the challenges that you think are very critical in the eastern region that need addressing.
Thank you so much, Douglas. I'm not so much of a reader of the Bible or the Quran, as my sister is affiliated to this religion. But there is a book called Lamentations. I want to try my best not to be part of that thought of school or school of thought, because I always joke with quite a number of my friends who are in different political parties when they ask me, but what are you doing in that political party? I always joke and say I'm here in pain because the challenges that we can talk about, of which we have spoken about these challenges for quite a number of years and for a long time, they're right, but we call them challenges and not problems. You know how hard it is to solve a problem, but challenges can be thought through and dialogues and conversations can be made to put right what we think is wrong. We speak about the regional balance in leadership or in representation, as my good brother from FDC speaks about the national cake. But I can justify for the fact that there is a substantial number of ministers from the Eastern region. And I think when we talk about the national cake, we mean those persons that can sit closer to the president and generate conversations and many other issues that they think affect this nation. I want to insist that for the areas I've moved in Eastern region, and by the way, I also have a benefit that I've studied from the lowest of the classes of schools, but also by God's grace, I've been to what I can call averagely the highest of maybe institutions of learning. I'm a lawyer by profession. But I've been in key Eastern region, Central, and then Western region. And I want to assure you, the poverty in Eastern Uganda is not any different from the poverty, the type of poverty in Central. Neither is it different from the type of poverty in Western Uganda, where we think that they should be the ones that are having the best of life. I want to totally desist from thinking that there is an area that is far privileged than any other area. Problem number one, I think, there's lack of civic awareness by the young people. And when as we are contesting and having these aspirations, when we become members of parliament, it actually ceases to be a representation of the youth. You know that it is now a matter of national importance, and it becomes the interest of the country as a whole. Whether you are a youth representative, whether you are PWD, whether you're from the army, whether you're from a particular sub-region or women representative, they now become interests of the people of Uganda. If you traverse very well and in key areas, or even many affected areas, you realize the young people, even the old people, even those who have money and those who don't have money, they are not civically aware. They have no civic awareness of the basics, even of their own rights. And that means they've been deprived of something that can maybe change the current status quo. Poverty is looming, and that means that when we, the young people who are campaigning from all over, come with monies and so on, I try to actively participate in the direct elections, the primaries of NRA members, and realize that the level, they will tell you that the MP has put a lot of money, has bought votes, and when you ask, what is this amount that they're talking about? They're buying people with 2,000, 1,000. Young people, old people are sacrificing their communities at pennies of shillings. I think that is a very big problem. And not even we as young people can persuade this country enough that we can come up with solutions to that. But I think we can start conversations. We can start dialogues, sub-regional dialogues, regional dialogues, that where do we want to see our country in the next 5
10, 20 years. Because the corruption is not even just in a particular political party, as my brothers may insinuate that the movement. Look at FDC. Look at NUP. Because corruption is in different aspects. The internal democracy of the movement, with us we are now participating in internal democracy, isn't it? We're having primary elections. But you heard my brother saying that he's the flag bearer.
Yes, I went through an election. Did you want it to be advertised in Chatham?
I'm not saying that he did. You have heard him say he's the flag bearer of FDC.
I went through
Whereas he went through an election, but you can agree with me that many of us are not aware of that election.
But are you an FDC
You
member?
can equally agree with
Do you
me.
want? I
that
never knew that you were none in an
you can agree with me. Just a minute. You will
I never knew also that you were
I
in
think
an
I think you
election.
will add my brother
Yes.
Masawi some more time to
Yeah,
have
just
sure.
as a wind up. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that the challenges within the movement cut across all other political affiliations.
Yeah.
Because I think they have the best way they think they can have the internal democracies. But the democracy that we have known worldwide is, I think, one that the movement is trying to exhibit in its internal structures. We have had structures from the villages,
But
from the 72,000 villages in this country.
The concern that the viewers and myself will have on those internal democracies, we have witnessed 311 petitions
Absolutely, I agree.
from internally that people are disgruntled with the internal processes that you have had, and that raises questions. But besides that, the financing that has happened, the political financing that has happened, there's been high monetization of the process.
Yeah.
Something that, of course, started with the national resistance movement.
Yeah.
An assertion that many people, including myself, would make. Now, considering that all these are challenges that have been started by the party that you affiliate with, first, you have already a disgruntled internal process.
Okay.
So how sure are we as young people that we shall be in position to have the best leaders coming in from your party to represent the views of the young people? And then two, how certain are we as young people that you will still not go ahead and use money to buy the votes of your fellow young delegates?
Douglas, you say that there has been a lot of monetarization of politics. And I actually agree with you. 100%, if I'm to say. I agree with you. You say it's pioneered by people within the movement. The movement is one political party that has managed to welcome other members of other parties within the party who maybe we thought would be disciplined enough to live to the expectations of certain disciplines, to put corruption aside. I don't want to mention names here, but we had a scandal here, a very popular scandal of the Karamoja iron sheets. A very popular scandal. And if you go down and start mentioning names of persons that were into this scandal, some of them were people who came from other political parties. And at this time, I don't think that you want to tell him that, whereas they were maybe aware and civically aware that the movement erased that habit from them. I think they were originally corrupt. But it runs to values and virtues. Our country is limited on values and virtues. Virtues may be hard to reach to, but can we have a country that is running on values?
All right.
And with just a minute, if we are to have a nation that runs on values, that means we would even have ministers, members of parliament, civil servants resign voluntarily because they have been caught in acts that demean them or that demean the state that they serve, that demean the people that they serve. But shortage of that, we are having people still having confidence that I can be, even though I am hurting the nation. I think that is what I can say in that regard.
Interesting. Just a rhetoric. I could argue that the reason as to why we're seeing all these scandals or all these corruption cases is because some individuals believe they can the president is on speed dial for them. So even when they commit the offense,
Yeah.
they will get away with it. And of course, the values and virtues that you argue, if the Fountain of Honor, who of course represents your party, goes ahead and rescues these individuals, then we shall still remain in the same situation. But Iva, let me get to you. We have, at this point in time, understood the challenges that we believe all of us are here to tackle in the Eastern region, but also broadly when we are elected as the youth member of parliament of the region, we will of course articulate on the floor of parliament. But now let's understand. You highlighted issues to do with one, equal opportunity sharing in the region, poverty, and of course famine, which is among other challenges that you highlighted. Let's understand what is your plan? What is your plan that looks at addressing these particular challenges, and how do you intend to maneuver with that?
I was listening to my brother, and all these troubles are political parties, issues. The Eastern region under the late His Excellency Milton Obote and the Ankole, they are one of the most highly rated and almost honest status back then, because of how the economy of these regions did is when you go there you find Tata trucks in Usoga, which are as old as possible, that were brought into these regions during that time. You do ask me of a plan. First of all, the cardinal roles of any representative of a special interest group in parliament are not a bit ubiquitous or different from any other parliamentarian. But first of all, I can't tell you I'm anyway happy participating in this youth race, because I tell you I finance NRM candidates in their own elections because they are leaning to me on my own money. These elections have been created for children of people from rich families, right? Because of the cost. My parents were primary teachers. I'm not a man of a rich family, but on my little earnings of engineering, I need to go and cook for people pilau to enjoy my money. Because the elections are part of the reforms. When we had the State of the Youth report at Sheraton last year with the Youth MP for Eastern, that is Odoi, were to see that in the reforms proposed by the Honorable Mathias Impug, these elections for youth be by adult suffrage. They open up from college system to allowing the same day the president is being voted, the youth MP is voted across the entire Eastern region. There is a vote going place. So I promise to see that we advocate first for the way how these people are got. These elections are marginalizing a lot of people from families which are not connected to the state. That people have influence to use RDCs to influence who come as delegates, to use the Ministry of Education to see who comes as a delegate. So for it to be effective, it needs to be open to allow everybody to compete fairly. Because that has been the whole thing. You can speak, I want to advocate for this, but first of all, it is not there. It is about the highest bidder. And even when you bid, they have treated special interest groups as when you saw the first PDM layout plan, they were not there, but everything you beg, you make noise. When you look at the entire national youth structure of the National Youth Council that establishes the Eastern Youth MPs or the regional youth MPs, these are people after voting, they will again resurrect when they are exiting or coming back for the next term. The current budget of the National Youth Council is 800 billion, but 800 million. But when you look at the 800 million, those are salaries. There is nothing functional, productive. A few years ago, it was 4 billion. Jacob came around taking all of us from different political parties to do us what. But when he came to 800 million, you even no longer see him talk that NYC is still around, yet it had us who participated from different parties and were members of the NYC. So the key issues that I want to address are not unique to any youth from any other region, maybe apart from Western. The challenge is that when you start to speak about Uganda's challenges, they are nationalistic and regional. I always want that when I'm speaking about you, Eastern region, we have our regions which we know on fingers that speak Busoga, speak Bugisu, speak Teso, speak Bukedi, and you have addressed issues around the Eastern region. Sebei. Because when you look at issues of price fluctuations, who faces the rough? When you look at issues of teenage pregnancies, who is leading with the gold medal? When you look at issues of underinvestment in sports, Sebei, who is being excluded? When you look at the latest policies on agriculture, it handicapped our coffee as Bugisu as a region, that our coffee has now been left to a certain group of people in this country that has monopoly over dominating the coffee industry in something called Inspire. So when you look at, he did say that there are very many ministers from Eastern region in cabinet who go there. I don't know what President Museveni did to some NRM people. Why he bewitched them, I don't know. I'm waiting to discover. I'm still doing research. Because I always want people who speak from engagement and effectiveness. You do your monitoring and evaluation and speak from a way of. I've told you, if you are to be brought in an ambulance from Jinja to Mukono via Madati Mabira Road currently, and you survive dying, you're lucky. These are issues that when a road in Western Uganda is in such a state, they will work on it on a certain time. But this is a road where contractors even went off. But is the road bringing imports in the country and taking people from Eastern home and out? These are issues that, as I told you, that the issues of nationalistic and regional politics play divergently, but they are all as the issues of ineffectiveness in governance. The reason Kenya has still maintained its old structures of state governments was to see that it addresses such disparities in time, because a district like Bududa, where I originate, you collect your revenue and it comes central government, and Bududa has no tarmac road. We use the road ends in Manafa, you start a very poor road, not even Maram, but complete soil road. You will expect me to come here and say I'm happy, I survived the immunization, I'm normal, I was immunized. I went to UPE, I ended up on national merit in Chambogo, Maninginiya. But we started the class of 240 students and we were only 2 who reached university. I have not come out because I was unique, maybe because of luck. So, the roles and plans of UFMP are situated, but there is an issue that is really failing even the current UFMPs, that even if it was me, the failures wouldn't be such unique. The issue of, as long as the functionality of the entire youth structure still remains for political purposes, voting machines, the structure will only exist for voting. After voting, you find a district youth chairman who doesn't know why he was voted. You find a secretary of finance. They even don't have a youth circle for. And because different parties have different youth guidelines, some have youths who are above 35 as a youth chairman. But the law says 18 to 30. So you'll find somewhere else, these are adults, they are not youth by law. If this is constitution, is that you need to be 18 to 30. The NRM allows people, I think you have youth chairmen for the party.
Not for NYC.
And in the party, I'm saying in the party.
No.
In the party, if you look at people in the party, I'm not meaning in NYC, but in the party structures, you're allowed to be past 30 to 30.
You're not allowed.
To 35, I'm telling you because I read it day and night. And I have colleagues who are 34 and are running for NRM positions in the party. These are, so the whole key issue of harboring and being politics being a habitat for adult youth who are past their 30s but still remain around because of the national issues. The issues I will not come here and say unemployment, what? This don't isolate. There are Banyankole who are unemployed and they carry briefcases for MPs, what? They are all over town escorting Mohoz when he's going somewhere. But there are also Banyankole You can't say that unemployment is specifically for Eastern Uganda. These are national problems that reforms in our education need to address, reforms in our skilling need to address, that functionalities in our different sectors, agriculture, transport, and what need to create more opportunities to take in. So my plan, first of all, is that we need to advocate for the voting system to change, that he doesn't be isolated because he has no 750 million to invest in an election. That she's not isolated because there is my other friend from Makerere in Ginja also running for the same, our big guy who is always here. Will have an advantage because of certain connections, but it's an open system. Then from that, the NYC itself structures. They should not be voting machines. For the first time, let structures be functional in a way that if council, at least maybe we attach the structure members to a council, a district council, to also operate as a real-time voice, full-time. Not having majority population, 80% youth, but their structures are for decoration, right? I think even qualifications should increase, because if the president and the NRM really, in some of the things that they did, is that people who have gone to school may have increased, whereas those who may finish may not be that big. But there should be now putting some seriousness that even in these structures, like at the district, there be some literacy levels. Part of the reason why he's using civic engagement as a disparity is because whereas the literacy levels were raised, politics was still left for only senior 6 and above people, but all after LC5, all those other guys, you just need to have money. Is why a 34-year-old youth will come and oppress a 19-year-old on a position who is educated, who is committed, but the other one wants it to get the NRM allowance, to get the district allowance. So there is nothing different I can offer if my agenda is not to advocate for what has failed in the Odois and groups. I began following these elections when Anna Deke was also a youth MP from my party. I was heading to A level. And I followed from Ivan Masawi, who came next to Odoi now. The challenges they face are used as if they are just a fashion, like you see UPDF in parliament and other groups, that when they ask representation, we shall have an excuse. We have 5 young people around. But you use your friends, you buy them highly, they have expectations in you, but the environment created around you doesn't really give you potential to see that you cause effective contribution towards your colleagues who have put you there.
All right, thank you. Masawi, very interesting solutions. Not only looks at a nationalistic point of view, but also you have a regional eye to it. Aisha,
Yeah.
solutions. You identify challenges. One, you're looking at an education that is not fit to produce to produce a citizenry that first of all questions the systems that are in place, or even come up with solutions that are supposed to help them, uplift them of their standards. Let us get to the plans. What do you intend to do? As of course, when the Lord deems fit, the youth Eastern Member of Parliament.
First, I think I would need to address an issue raised by my brother about changing the election system. It's not practical. We can't put adult suffrage. It will be too expensive. There are 40 districts. It's going to be more expensive than.
Why is the president's election not expensive?
Respect each other than involving other only electoral colleges. It's special interest groups. It should be special interest groups that vote for us. Okay, so I'll go straight to how. My identified challenge was education systems that don't equip us well enough with the present job market. Practically, how? I would use an example of myself. With law, you are supposed to do internship, but most people look at internship in their last year. in their 4th year. Some don't even bother, they wait until LDC. I started my internship in my 1st year. This put me at a greater advantage of first getting a job and exposed me to the job market earlier than most people who did not. So when we look at the present, what our government has done, it has introduced the new curriculum. You think it has introduced the new curriculum and most schools are embracing it, but they are not. They have not put in enough effort to embrace the new curriculum. But when you look at the advantages the new curriculum gives us, it gives the children more exposure to practical skills. It helps us get more skilled that we, by the time we reach the job market, we are going to be skilled enough to embrace with the opportunities the job market, presents to us. So my solution is, first of all, okukatiriza, to emphasize that from primary, you must embrace for school to run, because we have we have local government to supervise this. Schools must run when they have embraced the new curriculum to better equip our students and to better equip the youth as well. This goes from primary to secondary to university as well. University has already embraced the skills acquiring and things like that already in the program. So let us equip the youth before they join the job market, so that by the time they join the job market, they fit, they work. The jobs present are there to work for you. And if you don't get a job, you can create a job for yourself, because the president encourages job creators. That's why he introduced different initiatives. And then for the second, to address the problem of lack of engagement, my brother said something that was quite key to what I want. No youth left behind, by using the current structures. Because he's right, the current structures are only there during election time. After elections, people go back to their business. But these structures are key, because we cannot be, as leaders, we cannot be everywhere at the same time, but the elected structures are. So as leaders, we need to use, and I intend on doing that, using the current structures to help our youth get in touch, get exposed with the initiatives, and to work with the initiatives, so that the initiatives works for us. For example, getting 1,000 youth per district as a pilot, 1,000 youths per district, to get there are different, of course, there are different initiatives. There is youth livelihood program, there are different initiatives in the health sector as well.
Aisha, so how are you going to harmonize this with already existing skilling hubs that the National Youth Council has been doing? Because that was an initiative that the NYC, but also with the president under the Youth Livelihood Fund, came up with the various skilling hubs across the regions. So how is this any different? Will it have a different impact, or it's just a replica of the already existing systems?
He was part of the NYC. You heard how he spoke about the NYC. They never met unless there was something to share. So the skilling hubs are mostly in theory. They went for trips. The skilling hubs
I hope you guys also don't go for trips, because
we want to work. We are here because we want to work. So the skilling hubs are mostly in theory and mostly in photos and social media. But are they actually working for the people? And NYC, the people who are a part of the NYC come from the structures. So they don't just come out of the blue, but they actually come from the structures. They are part of the structures as well. So to reactivate our structures by using them to expose and to work with the youth, with the 1,000 youths per district, we follow that. You understand? So yeah.
John Baptist, apologies. Let's get into your solutions to the problems that you highlight. One, the issue of lack of civic awareness, and then two, you also highlighted an issue to do with poverty. What are your solutions?
Representation, foresight, and legislation. These are the key roles of a member of parliament, regardless of a particular group they are representing. I have tried to appreciate the Nile Basin. I've looked at the areas of Mayuge, the areas of Namayingo. We can run, I think, to Kaliro. These are areas where one of the economic activities is fishing
Mm.
because of the lake that is around in the Nile. Whereas I appreciate so much the initiatives by His Excellency of the movement, where we have gotten PDM, we have gotten, we are trying to empower the young people. But if you look at these areas I've spoken to, an activity like fishing is one of those that are quite expensive to sustain.
That's true.
In regards to what is required to the standards established by the government. Fishing gears would go for an approximation of, if I'm not mistaken, 10 million. Fishing gears, standard nets. We are looking at engine boats. And I think a fairly cheap engine is at about 7-8 million. And we are having initiatives by government, which I say I appreciate, giving out millions, a million
Per person.
per person. And if I'm to look at, even if we would say, because there is fishing that is requiring 2 personnel on a boat to go. Even if we were to say, let every boat have 5 people, it would still not, it would be 5 billion, it would still not meet the standard required by the government. I think there should be a conversation around that area. That whereas the government is interested in empowering the young people in this particular region, as far as understanding the economic activities and so on, we had areas where they were giving out, let me say, we had some times where they're giving out goats and so on and so forth. But a person who has lived in the islands, who understands much fishing, I can assure you, if you give them goats, they will eat them. They will eat them. And empowerment will end at table. Because we understand poverty is there. We understand people don't have food, as he said, I agree with him. So conversations around such sensitive areas must change. We must dialogue to see how effective must these areas be empowered. If you're to go to, I've been to Busia border, I've been to Lwakaka, I've been to Swan border in Sebei, look at Malaba border. There's a lot of economic trading going on here. You'll realize that the tariffs along these borderlines are affecting the young people quite negatively, because there could be ready markets across a border like Busia, Kenya. But because of the tariffs, a young man is spending more to run about 200 kilometers to the central, and yet Busia is walkable across the other side. I think there must be conversations. If we are trying to create an East Africa of a free trade area, then we must mean the conversations. I'm not saying these conversations have not happened, but we must mean these conversations. That true, there must be these trade barriers put aside. How effective can it be? Can we have legislation? Can we have policies that the young people who are in parliament speaking about such areas too? Let's look at agriculture. There are hubs that we speak to, that we all know, that are happening. Skilling hubs. To my little knowledge of skilling or whatever I've tried to read about, processing needs quite a number of things. We may have to go into realizing that we may have to have imports, or export something to import something to process something. Let's look at an area like Sebei. Sebei has some coffee, like Bugesu has some coffee. Has coffee actually, not even some, has coffee. But you can understand the challenges they've faced in the recent past about the coffee question in this country. If an area like Sebe has coffee, if an area like Sebe is into barley, actually, they're also into maize. I've been into these areas and I see there's good agriculture going on. Can we have food processing in these areas? Processing. And when we have factories of food processing, that means the locals are dealing in something they understand. They understand.
I have a question in regards to that.
Yes,
We
please.
understand that when it comes to, of course, value addition and food processing,
Yeah,
government has to work with an existing entity. For example,
Absolutely.
A particular investors coming in place,
Hmm.
or even other young people who have the money to set
Yeah,
up these
yeah,
facilities.
yeah.
It just doesn't come out of thin air.
yeah.
So how feasible is it that we can have those facilities in place?
Why-
Or
But
what would
Drake,
we do?
why
these are
is
not
this?
new. There were cooperatives
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
I'm
Let
a
me come
origin
there.
of this
Yeah.
cooperative.
Let me come
union.
there, exactly. I don't say like mine think alike, but he's mentioning a very pertinent
To
point.
great minds think alike.
We have gotten areas that have been known as industrial hubs and have been killed by what I can still say the government in which I belong. I want to be very honest to us. We have had a chain of investors get into this country. And I do not understand so much whether these investors are brought here on personal interest initiatives and not necessarily to invest in areas that affect the people of Uganda. And when we talk about the people of Uganda, the old people must understand that the young people have gotten a substantial number in this economy. And we don't sideline them. We must consult them. We must appreciate that indeed they are our forefathers or they are our pioneers. But when it comes to, you've said processing must have establishments around. Can we have investors that speak to that? Can we have a resurrection of these areas, the industrial hubs? Can we have the cooperatives work effectively of coffee in Mugesu? Can we have the fishing processing industry in Ginger resurrected or effectively appreciated? I think we must have conversations that put the interests of the young people, all of the people of Uganda first. However, I want to say we have questioned so much the powers that be. We have questioned so much the ministers, the members of parliament, or those that are already representing us. But Douglas and my colleagues here, what dawns on me so much is, how do these people get there? They get there through a democratic process. These people are elected by we who question them. And that is always something I personally question myself, that we question these guys for limited representation or not putting the interests of the people of Uganda first. But when it comes to the ballot, it is us who put them there. Now, that runs back to the civic awareness, which is equally a solution, as I'm mentioning. A civic engagement, a sensitive civic. If you go to a country like Kenya, I don't want to use Kenya as an example, because it also has its own problems. We are always seeing the on streets and so on, demonstrating and so on. Yeah, as a whiner. But the level of civic awareness in Kenya supersedes that of Uganda, obviously. But if you come back in our country here, people don't even understand what they are meant to do, what it means to vote for a member. They don't understand. And that's why they're going to sacrifice a community, a constituency, at a 2,000 Uganda shillings. That, know what? I'm going to vote for Ouma because he has come very smartly, he has given maybe 2, 3, 4,000, now he deserves to be a member of parliament. But to speak to these issues, we as the young people outside there, I want to tell us that whereas people have brought money to us, much and little, let us sit back and look through that the decision we are going to make is either going to affect we the young people for the next 5 years, either negatively or positively.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's just quickly go for a short break. The conversation is right hot. We also be later on in the other half of the show, we'll be joined by another aspirant who had been caught up by the names of Wandukwa Simon from the National Unity Platform. See you in a bit.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Hello there, our dear esteemed viewers. Welcome back from the break. Just before we went into the break today in the Youth Roundtable, we are having aspirants of the Youth Eastern Member of Parliament. And of course, we have been joined by a gentleman from the National Unity Platform by the name of Wandukwa, Simon. Just before I get back into the conversation, allow me give you some time to, first of all, help us identify challenges that you believe are persisting in the Eastern region, and what would be your possible solutions to these challenges. And then we get into the discussion.
Well, thank you very much. Hello, our viewers out there. My name is Wandukwa Simon. Like he has mentioned, I am from Bugisu sub-region, in particular, Manafa district, and a member of the National Unity Platform, aspiring for Youth MP, Eastern Uganda. Now, to the challenges that we face as Eastern Uganda, I think for me, I would look at them only in three categories. The first is education. The second problem is unemployment, and the third problem, which is actually part of education, is the skills. How the education system does not produce what we consume as a community. Now, to start with, we have a challenge that we have universal primary, universal secondary education, but when it comes to university education, there is a problem that education in this country is very expensive. When you look at the report of Minister of Education 2023, over 80% of students who cross from secondary do not make it to university or tertiary institutions. And as a leader, and as a major problem in our community, I think that the problem of education must be addressed to the core. There are three things that can be done. One, we can actually advocate for free university education, and it is achievable, very achievable and practical. I'll give you an example. Take an example of Makerere as the biggest public institution in this country. It has approximately over 40,000 students. And let's say if a student at Makerere is paying an average tuition of 3 million, we have a total collection in tuition of around 120 billion per semester. That's around 240 per financial year. We have a government that gives a supplementary of over 600 to State House just to look at the residency of the president. We have a parliament that gives handouts to companies like Rocco just to do their works and do not actually pay back this money. And for me, I think
but companies like Rocco contribute to the economy. Right?
Yes, they do. Yeah. They do. But you see, that is where I come into the problem of where do our priorities lie as a country. That do we compare the contribution of Rocco to the same scale of the contribution of educating the community at the same scale? I think I will give you another example, still about how we can practically achieve a free university education, that we have 500,000 plus civil servants in this country. And according to the budget of this country, the civil servants alone and the money spent around the civil service is approximately 12 trillion. Yeah. But if we have to actualize a program like having universal university education, we can actually achieve it at less than even 5 trillion per financial year. Now, it addresses the problem of, do we have education as a priority in this country? And like I said, Eastern Uganda is one of those that is suffering from this big problem of the 80% students that do not actually cross from secondary to institutions. But secondly, we still have children, young girls in this century in Eastern Uganda that do not actually go to school during their times of menstrual period. You know, we still have girls who still sit on stones just to control their menstrual hygiene. You know, and these are some of the challenges that can actually be addressed by the Ministry of Education. You know, by providing sanitary, equipment to these girls to actually feel comfortable and be in school. You know, so we even have a universal secondary education and primary education that is underfunded, and this cannot produce the kind of product you would want to have on the job market of this country that is competent enough to match up the speed. We have the national merit that gives that gives a sponsorship to students that have excelled highly, and most of these students that have excelled highly come from these urban and well-to-do communities, and leaving out the less privileged. How about we have a conversation around, if we cannot achieve the universal university education or tertiary institutions education, how about we have a conversation around decentralizing, giving more slots to the district quota, so that we have an equal number of students getting these tertiary institutions, but also introduce loan scheme education to these other tertiary institutions, because currently it works only at a university level, at degree level and whatnot. How about we introduce it more to these other tertiary institutions?
Doesn't then that contradict with your solution of free education if you're again offering loan facilities?
No, I told you I have three solutions. The first is we can actually achieve free education. The second, if that fails, then we can have decentralized scholarship. If that also is so hard to achieve, then we can have more loan scheme programs reaching down to the beneficiaries.
What is then your priority? Achieving free education or having the third option?
The priority for me would be to achieve free education, because it is achievable. It is achievable. For me, the priority would be that every Ugandan has a right to education, and that should be so.
Okay. All right. This question will go to all of you, but I'll start from Masawi, coming back this side. Ivan, as a legislator, or as legislators, when you get into the floor of parliament, you mentioned that you have three key cardinal.
There are four.
Four. One is legislation, oversight, representation, and
budget appropriation.
That one. Now, all these four roles and responsibilities of a member of parliament, when you're on the floor of parliament, even when you're on the floor of parliament as the youth Eastern member of parliament, you are representing Ugandans as a whole. So we have overriding and cutting challenges across the nation that we as young people are facing. One, of course, comes down to employment, which is a national issue, be it in the Eastern region, Northern region, Central or West. The challenges of unemployment cuts across. Secondly, another challenge that cuts across that I think is also very important that you have highlighted in the challenge that you have identified, Aisha and my brother here, things to do with education. Education has become so expensive that even schools in the Eastern region that used to be giant schools those days, if you go in Eastern Uganda, schools like Mbale SS, schools like Mwiri, among others. These were powerful schools in the region that was able to produce prominent citizens that this country has seen. You go into the northern region, schools like Sacred Heart, Laibi College, Negri College, among others. These were powerful schools. But nowadays, everyone has to send their kid to Kampala, even when they can't afford. Parents are drowning in loans. That's the second challenge that I believe cuts across. And I think it's fundamental that we talk about education and we talk about unemployment, something that I think as legislators on the floor of parliament, you'll have to address. So Ivan, speaking onto those issues, what are your solutions directly, not only to the people of the Eastern region, but as nationally?
First of all, I give credit where it is due. I passed through UPE in my primary. I was at Mbale SS. I was at Kyambogo University. It is only at masters that I've been to a private university. So I can never say the education system that their government provided, I never tested it or
benefited from.
I never excelled through it. So, Drake, when you're not a tourist in Uganda and you're a local man like me who has been born here and I have my plans to die here, you discuss Uganda either in a realistic manner or you discuss it idealistically so that they say you went to school, you can speak politics, you can entertain viewers, or you choose to speak Uganda the way it exists. We all know what privatization brought. Privatization in Uganda is not so old. It was brought to in 1987 when the NRM wanted to see that as they stabilize the economy, they wanted to get other people inject money around, stabilize from what had happened in the early 80s and worsened in the 90s. Because in the 90s, it was the issue of the entire African globe that they were faced with economic disparities. Some countries had to change the type of money they used to see that they liquidate their economies to face the shortages of how they would trade against the dollar in trade disparities. But so when I come back to you, the issue of privatization did not only go with education, even health. Very few people will have hope in Iganga Hospital, whereas it may be ranked the best in Busoga in offering services. He comes from a very unique place, Namayingo. Ask them their district hospital, what is the procedure and what is the referral rate to Iganga or Jinja. So the issues that, President Museveni who came at the start is not the President Museveni of now. Uganda has gone through transitions which have been governed by one individual. He's the only one who can explain how he has brought us here. But the entire issues of privatization, you will not limit them to education, you will not limit them to investment, you will not limit them to health. Even the way of governance itself, how we have had local governments change to now district service commissions for giving jobs, and those have all been transitions. But coming back to the issue of education and unemployment, like you want me to address, first, government has declarations it signs globally to have a compliance with funding of its education. They have not been met. Second, the capitation grants for these UP and USEs have remained 20k, whereas money has been losing value and the demands for students increasing. So it has been intention that we under budget for our education. I will tell you, you will be 5 your MPs and the others may not have similar ideas like he has or I have. You will be not go to a caucus even if you all went NRM or FDC and defeat 5 of you, defeat the other 500 or in the floor of parliament. But it will depend on how you make alliances with direct elected MPs, women MPs, to see that you approach your issues in a way that is unique. So the issue of seeing that the legislation on education has really, because you look at institutions like UNSA, they exist for fashion. They are supposed to mentor real class leaders, but they have also now been ring-fenced for certain families and people who have certain amounts of money. You find a student has to get a loan of over 100 million just to win an UNSA election. So Even elections have taken privatized money. So, coming back to education, it is a business. Muyingo, you open schools to compete with Mwiri. Why do you take your children to go to the schools where the Obotes went? Intare will survive because it has some big boys who are in power. But Maimbari says where me and the Nandas went will collapse because you're still making noise, you're not in power. Namasagari will go silent because it was a king in Kamuri. Jinja College will remain around. Jinja SS will be known for numbers. But when you look how many rich universities, they will not be that appealing. They end up in gangs and being in Bugemba around this to confuse people. So I wanted that we address issues of service delivery and effectiveness. Actually, I have no business to do with being in politics and always shouting over NRM and us who are not in power. If it was effective, because I don't want to lie you that if I was in a party in power, we would have programs so unique from what the NRM is implementing, but we would commit to seeing that there is some effective engagement in some of these programs. You can't say budgets increase the same 20,000 shillings you gave as a capitation grant to a student when the budget was still 30 billion shillings. We have a budget of now 72 trillion. Students still receive 20k. And you say you're putting for Uganda cranes 1 billion shillings if they win a game. But you can't say you are distributing 1 billion shillings to see that girls get pads on a monthly basis. You can't see you're contributing 1 billion shillings to see that every UP school has toilets which are clean, that accommodate the hygiene of some of our daughters and sons. So the mindset of the biggest challenge that now NRM has actually created, it gave people large intestines and little food. So any system that looks amorphous, but when the input is little, it will have the same issues education is facing, the same issues health is facing. Even our roads, I told you, I don't like inviting people to do that I end them in Mbali, because our road is not even tarmac, but a road of soil. I don't know how to call it in engineering terms, because it is not there. I can't grade it as marram or gravel. So as long as a youth MP, our positions remain to fill the structure of beauty, of fashion, that there is also young people being represented, because really the biggest population are young people. So all the aspirations should be through the entire parliament, not only youth MPs, because if you have 80% voting, it means President Museveni's vote will be majorly from young people. 80% of his vote will not be from the elderly, it will be from young people. These are not demands of a FMP, they are demands of a president, they are demands of an LC5, they are demands of a councillor. Should reflect education and employment. Because Education Review Commission made some recommendments. And when the only recommendment that came up was a competent-based syllabus. But still is the issue of the competent-based syllabus. When you look at where is it connecting with the employability, where is it absorbing people into the working system, it is not there. You can't say you're in a competent syllabus and join the university the same way I joined, struggling on cut-off points, you be in a university the very way I was in it, and you expect to have a different brain from me who was in the other syllabus of doing everything. There should be an environment which is intentional, but there should also be policy that is intentional. That when we change, let's change for good. Not again only changing a state and then the end output is still similar.
All right. Aisha, the same question applies to you. Nationalistic challenges that cuts across, not only to the people of the Eastern region, but also to the youth across board. Education is a challenge that I said cuts across. Unemployment is a challenge that cuts across, but also it highlights other challenges as well. But let us get to listen to the solutions you intend to offer as a legislator for the young people.
To summarize the solutions, it's two.
Yeah.
Lobby for reforms and budget, look at budget allocation to support those reforms. When we look at practically how Parliament runs, we don't see it as a whole 500 and or so. They divide us into different committees. So what you bring to the table depends on the committee that you are allocated to. If you have an interest that is not aligned with the committee you are allocated to, you are free to go and deliberate in the sittings of that committee. Suggest, but you do not vote. So that his suggestion, my brother's suggestion on alliances is quite good with allying with those members of committees for reforms that you want to suggest, but you're not part of that particular committee. So when I look at my two identified challenges nationalistically is suggesting reforms, because I had told you about suggesting reforms on making it compulsory that schools follow the new curriculum. Because if you have actually been in these schools when they are addressing the new curriculum and how it works, because I have, if you have been there and listened to it and how it's going to work well for us, you would see that it's going to work for us if people actually follow it. So making that compulsory. But I've also sat in committees where they talked about the fact that there are schools still running and people don't follow the curriculums, and yet the schools are still running. So we look at making it compulsory that schools do follow this, and also allocating some more money to the roles of, because we have seen different, I've sat only at local government level of the Committee of Education and Health in Jero municipality, and I've seen that they're not even allocated enough money for supervising, their mandates, their different mandates. So ensuring that there is more money sent from central government to these local government to see that they supervise that government initiatives are running properly. And so it's reforms, making
Lobby. Reforms and lobbying.
Yes, reforms, lobbying for these reforms of change, and then allocating more money to supervise that these reforms are actually implemented. And then on my second identified challenge of people or youth not being more involved in the initiatives that are taking place. I have followed the president's tour around the PDM's implementation of the PDMs. I have been to Buvuma. I was at the one in Chimaka as well, and Buvuma identified your fishing issue. And what I got from that is Agari Awamu, Yugaru Minyama. That is what the Muganda says. The teeth that are together are the ones that bite properly the meat. They knew that the fishermen had bigger budgets for their businesses. They encouraged them, you have to get together. If you know each youth is getting only 1 million, get together, get a group that can afford your equipment and work together. It's the best thing. So when I go back to my point of making sure that the initiatives are implemented using the structures that are already put in place. When you go in the structures and wanting to work with the structures will say, okay, we are constrained because of resource allocation and things like that, but that goes back to budget allocation for these structures. Some money for them, because there is money in our budget for them. Allocate some money for them to help us implement the initiatives that are in place.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's it.
John Baptist.
I don't know what solutions I can speak of that for many years people have not spoken about. And the good thing is we are literally agreeing. I'm literally agreeing with some of the solutions, if not actually all that my colleagues here, my friends here are providing. Douglas, I don't know which political party you affiliate to, but I want to say none for now.
Of course, I've
Which
been
is a
non-partisan
good- which
for
is
now.
a good thing. And my brother here, by virtue of the beret, he has already identified himself. I am for the movement, just like my sister here. But from our submissions, you can agree with us that we are not happy. And he's for FDC. There must be goodwill across the political parties in this country to have conversations and dialogues to transform this country. There must be that goodwill. Not that when a NUP is having propositions of solutions, that I must now desist from agreeing with what they're providing. Not that when I am speaking or the movement is speaking, then we zero down conversations around the president that he must go. Not that when our brothers in FDC are speaking, that we must now develop cold feet because they are providing a solution. I think there is lack, total lack actually, of goodwill to agree where we must agree.
We share the problems together.
We share the problems together in this country. And trust me, it is terrible, especially among us with young people. There must be a national dialogue, a national consensus. It can be in categories of the powers that be and with the powers that seek to be, or the young people, and so on. It must be categorized that we as young people, what do we really want? We can't be pinning a state or pinning the powers that be, yet we are part of creating that problem by voting, sorry to say, I don't want to call people senseless, but some leaders are pathetic liars on solution provision. They come and return after 5 years. Let us have conversations around the problems as a whole, all of us. Now, if we talk about particular solutions, the education system in our country has been questioned quite a number of times, and I will not be part of those that don't question it. We have privatization, we have nationalization, as my brother has been speaking. The relevance of privatization has always been, from the little economics I've appreciated, is that when government is in shock of what is happening, the private sector can come to rescue.
And also improve quality.
And improve quality. I insist on the aspect of privatization and nationalization. And as I said, privatization comes to the rescue of government. And when things are okay and everything has been improved, government can take over. But I think that when it comes to the education sector, where we have seen privatization try to improve quality and so on and so forth, government has ceased to be part of now the solution. And it has entirely left it for that, for the private sector in the education system. That is why we are facing a very big challenge, that public institutions, public schools across the country have continuously been affected. We have talked about Mwiri, we have talked about Kiakulibutiki, other countries, other schools in northern Uganda, and many others around this country. It is a bad habit for a government to create a deaf ear on concerns of education in this country. So for me, I think that the conversation around policies around the education sector must be enhanced for the benefit of the young people or for the benefit of the citizens of this country. When we look at the regulatory framework around these areas, especially look at the fees structures, in these institutions of learning, it is alarming. SETA, you can imagine the monies that are being paid in SETA. But what does that speak to? It speaks to the fact that whereas we acknowledge people work hard and pay for their children tuition, but some of the officers in state who are pioneers of corruption also take their children there, not because they have meritedly worked for these monies. But so when we have a regulatory framework on the amount of fees, I think this is going to go down and boost up the fact that other institutions can equally accommodate persons on quality. We talked about free education. I think we must acknowledge that Uganda and many African states are still developing countries.
Anglophone.
Yeah, and are developing countries. And whereas we can yearn for free education, We all yearn for a free education. But is it feasible? Is it really feasible?
Yes, Francophone has done it.
Is it really feasible in this Uganda, whereby we want to have free education across this country, but then are the teachers being paid enough? Don't you think there should be sustainability? And sustainability equally comes in with an input. Government is going to provide a service, or the private sector is going to provide a service. Mustn't a service be paid for? I am not saying we must be exorbitant, but I'm trying to say that let there be a certain fee.
Okay.
Equally, we are going to have now. We're going to start having people who are going to produce children because they know there's what education is. They must be regulated what, and these come with a certain fee and a certain cost. If we look at a quality education, it should be paid for, but at a reasonable and a low cost, not totally free. Maybe unless I'm not understanding the aspect of free.
For your information, there was once free education in this country.
It's feasible.
And the people that are in government today were privy to the free education that
even
once
in the legal
existed.
sector.
But that is a conversation for another day.
Let me get so Douglas, I can acknowledge that there was free education, well and good. But when we talk about regulatory organization, we must equally appreciate the fact that why did it then go away? There were challenges at that particular state why people thought it had to go away. What I'm not saying, what I am not insisting on is that I acknowledge the status quo. There must be books bought. There must be pens and pencils bought, you know. There must be transportation too, you know. There must be food provided. The nature of the economy in which we're operating, if it continues to operate the way it is, then trust me, a free education may not be possible.
No, that's your opinion, and we gladly respect that. But also, have given justifications to it. But I would hold the view that there was once a Uganda that offered to its citizens free education and quality education at that. The people that we see occupying these various offices of power are testament that there was free and quality education.
And at that time, Uganda had.
But anyway, that's a conversation we can have because of capitalism, etc., etc. But let me come to you, Simon, as we age this conversation. What are your thoughts on the question that all the panelists responded to, and then we get to your concluding remarks?
Well, thank you very much. Just like my brother Ivan, I am equally a product of UPE, USE, and I'm currently at a public institution, Makere University, where I have pursued my first bachelor's in education and currently at law school. I do not say that because I am very proud of the system, because I keep mentioning this a lot, and also with the statistics that I've shared here, that over 80% of the colleagues I have been with in these schools have not made it to university. You cannot be proud to leave a class of 100 students and only 2 of you go to university. Not that you are the most bright in the class. I think that takes away the right of education to the rest of the 98 students, according to the statistics. So the challenge of education for me, and that is a thing I am so much passionate about, because I've been in that system. I have gone through it, and I have left colleagues behind. Perhaps some of them could even be were even better than me in class, you know, but have not gotten a chance to get at this level of education, and that is a problem I'm looking at. That can we address education as a right, not not a privilege to a selected few? And we've talked about how underfunded the USE and UPE is. And I just want to respond to my brother here about a thing he says education is not the free education is not feasible. I have brought several examples to show that actually, if it was priority, it takes just a small budget of the entire budget of this country. But also, I would also want to talk about what we teach in education. I'm a teacher, and what we teach by the new curriculum. My sister talked about not implementing the new curriculum, and it's a problem that we would think should blame on the schools, but must understand that the new curriculum, by its design, it calls for many things to be availed for this new curriculum to be implemented. Part of it is infrastructure. Now we still have in this 2025 schools where children are still studying under mango trees, under sheds, where students do not even have where to sit.
Even what to write on.
You get, and we expect to implement the new curriculum on such schools. I think the government must first address the challenge of funding in the education sector. That the infrastructure is not enough, and the motivation for the teachers is not enough. We have universities currently. The number of professors in institutions like Makere, public institutions like Makere right now is reducing. The professors are now running to private institutions that can actually afford to pay their worth, and the government seems not to look at that as a priority. So it is a very big challenge. If we want to implement the good curriculum like the designers thought it was, then we must address the core problem, the foundation of it. The other thing about education, and it really comes to employment, is we have very many products from these schools that do not actually match what the economy out there demands. We have very many courses that do not actually meet the demand in our communities. The skilling is very low, extremely low, and actually we are even meant to start thinking that the perception out there is that children going to technical have actually failed to go to universities and whatnot, and it's more like a negative perception in the communities. Now, if the education sector can actually address that and have skilling be looked at as one of the best ways of addressing the education system, and have these
practical
hands-on products to the community, we will actually have some of these skill problem
and as wind up
solved. But also running to the economic sector and unemployment and whatnot. Now we have, and this is the thing I am struggling with in my mind so much. Busoga sub-region is one of the poorest sub-regions. I think the second poorest sub-region in this country. Yet,
after Karamoja and Acholi.
Yeah, sure. Yet, Busoga has they do sugarcane plantation. We have countries like Brazil, whose economy is boosted so much on sugarcane growing.
That Brazil has poor people. Get time and
yes, but their economy,
countries I never want to go back.
Their highest revenue of whatever part of their highest revenue comes from sugarcane growing. We have our sub-region like Bugisu, that was formerly known and very well known for its coffee,
Arabica
coffee, one of the best. in the world, you know. But these are some of currently the most impoverished sub-regions in this country. What I'm saying is these sub-regions have at a particular point had a thing or two that has been their economic activity, but at the moment and as time went by, you know, these systems have been killed and we have gone back to zero. You get when you look at the zoning the zoning problem in the Busoga sub-region, you realize that you do not actually have a right to, you know, sell your sugarcane beyond certain limitation areas, and perhaps you would actually get a more better, you know, price for your products, but with the policy you cannot, you know. So the design of the legislation should address the challenge of poverty, but in a more decentralized manner. That how can we help Bugisu to boost its coffee? How with policy, you know, with the policy framework, how do we help Bugisu to boost its coffee production? How do we help Busoga, you know, to boost the agriculture and the districts around the lake to also boost in fishing? You know, we have there is good growth of just as a
we're
wind up.
out of time.
Yes,
Maybe
sure.
as you wind up and you give your concluding remarks, please.
Yeah. So the same is with Teso sub-region. There is a very good growth of cassava, and you actually find that a kilogram of cassava, you'll find it at 100 or 200 shillings, and that in itself will actually keep these farmers in absolute poverty. But what is the cost of starch at the global market? How do we best help these communities to you know, gain from their production? And that is a thing that can be addressed by legislation. But like you said, I should wind up. I want to call upon our fellow youths, especially of the Eastern region where I am contesting in. First, as we go into this election cycle, I know there is a very big problem in our country, the problem of cash outs for our votes. And I think for me, that is a thing that sickens me a lot, that we have seen people line up for 1,000 shillings to cast their vote. And it is so sad that your vote can actually be at a cost of 1,000, 2,000, or 10,000, or whatever it is. The vote is the only opportunity that you have as a Ugandan to speak to things that you would want to change in your communities, in your livelihood, but most importantly, in the daily cries you have. My candidature looks at these problems, but not in a way to lament, rather to provide practical solution. And these are things I have gone through personally, and I'm very passionate to address them. I implore all of you to rally behind me as your next youth MP in South Region. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My brother, John Baptist.
My friends of Eastern Uganda,
Those of the NRM first.
Civic space is so much on the Kun's language, but I would have loved to even speak the local dialect.
Feel free. You can greet them in your local dialect.
Emikwano dange abani naze abomu Busoga merini parani utumerani ginyemerani matororo abecha abasyani befe abahana befe abe mubusia Chorondok Mbayaya Ambache Bia Chebusabini and the Oduk family of Teso Vasa Livayaya Bebugisu. I am glad once again to be in the civic space today. I am aspirant and aspiring for the position of Youth Member of Parliament, Eastern Uganda. I seek to be your friend first of all. My candidacy is pioneered on and engagement and inclusion of youth interests first. And I believe through supporting me, through standing with me in this election, we can cause a change. We come under a new narrative to put aside the politics of monetization, politics of usage, politics of condomization, if I'm to mention it like that. That sauti ya vijana, John Baptist is here once again to seek for your support, to represent you in the next parliament as youth member of parliament. I thank you, and I'll be glad on that day mentioned winner. Asante sana.
Thank you.
I'll stick to the Queen's language. It seems like at least we share it across the, and I'm not very versed in different languages. My name is Namugga Aisha. Some of you have seen me, some of you are yet to see me. And I am vying for the post of Youth Member of Parliament for the Eastern Region.
On the flag.
For Youth Member of Parliament of Eastern Region. Currently for the primaries. But I'll be with you in the final election, I believe, if I do have your support. We have lamented long enough, and I believe that it is time for us to see the good that we have in our areas and to see what we have been endowed with, because we have so many gifts in this area. The wise men did not come from the east for nothing. There is so much we have to give, and we can only utilize that if we focus on the positives that we have, also acknowledging the negatives that we have been faced with. I do believe that as your member of parliament, if elected, when elected, will represent your best interests and will not go silent like the previous ones, but will be with you throughout the term and hopefully after the term. If you do trust me and if you do work with me throughout this period to the end, Namugga Aisha, the only female in the race, and I do request, yes. And I do request for your support.
Yeah.
And yeah, amen.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Drake, and our production team. To my colleagues who have joined us, I do appreciate you for your company and deliberations. It is sometimes Simon shocks me when he reminds me he's a teacher. We have known ourselves in different departments. Yeah, but in conclusion, the issues of I've never changed my position. Whether I am or not, I'm not resigning my job to go and run for UFMP. I'm going to remain an engineer, I'll remain offering what I offer. But my key issue of I'm one person who wants whatever Uganda owns to be owned by all of us equally. If there is electricity in Jinja, it serves the entire Uganda. Later again, on something which is in another region, Jinja be deprived. When Falls Dam was shared national, then something comes. When I say equal opportunity and prosperity for all, I don't speak by accident. I encourage any young people there with doubt in what I'm speaking, go and get the national budget of this year and check how much of that money will reach in Eastern Uganda in terms of tarmac roads, in terms of paying salaries, in terms of facilitating production in this, even in the PDM, and look at by regional distribution. So it is what I stand on. I've always known myself I'm a voice that I don't really need to explain to anyone, but the whole issue is we need to wake up as the young people across the board to see that we first need to decolonize what they have colonized in us. We need to appreciate ourselves and give ourselves tasks that are scaring. As long as we take ourselves as accomplices, salads, we need to come to the table. I've told you that whoever will win the presidential race will have 60% of votes from young people, right?
70.
Okay, 70% of young people will have voted for that person. I don't see why it should be a mass of a youth representative. The whole state should work for young people. Because even now, some like us, we are also becoming parents. You will feel shy to say youth when you also have a child. Right? These are issues we call upon the viewers, we call upon those in government to reflect on, and we work to achieve a Uganda that works for us all, respective of political parties are vehicles. If NRM was not taking people to parliament, to positions, no, none would be there. There would be UPC, if there would be UPC taking people to parliament, right? I'd never be deceived that there is any serious NRM member who has loved NRM for death. Let it lose morale of winning people positions. You'll see them, they will go where they will go. But our lives, our day-to-day living will remain. You will remain in Namugga Aisha, you will remain a Muslim, you will remain a lawyer, you will remain a hajjah to someone. So it's better you work for Uganda, which is is permanent than looking at temporary. There were stronger parties here in the past. We shall be in our 50s and remember our youth, but what should encourage us more is our contribution. This time is going to come and we shall be held accountable. That in your youth, the President Museveni, we shout over, he did whatever he did in his youth to put him where it put him, and that will never be taken away from him. I joined his friends who have worked with the General Muntus. They may have had issues, but all of them were brilliant in their youth, is how they have ended where they are. So I call upon young people, be wise in your voting. Don't be lured to violence. Don't be lured to price tags. Don't be lured to attacking and abusing colleagues on others. Let's grow. It's just a sense of which can shock. Let's again, our voting by the way will be by lining up. Again, they see there has been, I hate to hear that there has been the votes don't match, yet was by lining up. When I see NRM in its mess, voting of lining up and then there's malpractice in lining up, it is the worst thing that gives me nightmares, that we lined up and there was cheating. Really. I wish you a blessed weekend.
Thank you very much, Ivan Masawi, Aisha, Namugga, John Baptiste, Ouma, and Wandukwa Simon for taking time and joining us in discussion. As the team from the Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV would like to wish you all a good race, and may the best person win, and of course take us forward. Otherwise, to you, our dear esteemed viewers, for always religiously following the conversation, thank you very much. And to the production crew, Paul and Brittany, for making this possible. But also to Center for Constitutional Governance for bringing the young people together on Civic Space TV. My name is Douglas Onen. See you next week, same time, same place.